Yo, it's Elliott Wilson from Rap Radar. And mama, I made it. I'm on Montreality, man. Check me out. I peaked early in school, man. I was the incredible, excellent A+ elementary school person. And then about 4th grade, I think it got a little hectic for me, and I got my first B's and C's, and you know, my handwriting, I'd always get a C. My handwriting was always really terrible. I remember one time I got I was getting all A's, like I think up to 3rd, 4th grade. I remember my mother got upset because I got like a B or something. So I came home, and my father used to drink Budweiser. And she had a can of Budweiser, and she was like, "I'm so upset." And I was just like, so I've definitely peaked as like a real smart student type kid early in school. But I was always an outcast in school. I was always not the cool kid. I was always the kid that, like, if the cool kids picked each other to play a pickup game, a baseball game, I would take the nerds and create my own game because I didn't want to be picked last in your group. I'd rather take these guys and make my own group and teach these guys how to play. So that was kind of mentality, and like I definitely, like I said, I peaked early in school. I liked elementary a lot, junior high a little bit, high school I didn't like it all. So, you know, it was definitely always a feeling of being a little bit of an outsider. I was a little shy. No one believes that, but I was very shy. So yeah, I just feel like I would kind of blossom later. Like I went to community college, and community college was kind of like giving me that high school experience of what I thought high school experience should be. You know, started dating girls, started feeling like I got a little money in my pocket, you know, that kind of thing.
These are interesting questions. I like this.
I didn't have many jobs, but my mother always worked like in clerical departments of department stores and shit. So she worked at Macy's and Bloomingdale, so I had temp jobs doing that kind of stuff. Maybe just on weekends. It's funny, the first one I only did it on weekends. I only went in Saturdays, and I would like mark up time cards, and you know, people have the wash up time if they leave at 4:50 instead of 5, and you could dock them if they left like 4:48 and shit, like some bastard. And I basically took that money and bought records. I remember one time, like I would make like maybe like $60 doing that. And then one time I went to go get a record. I would go buy records either that weekend or Sunday. Sunday would close probably on Monday. And I remember I got all this money and I was buying all these records, and I bought this Gangstar 12-inch, and it was the Positivity 12-inch. It wasn't even like one of the biggest hits. It was Positivity 12-inch. And I used to have like $10, and I'd be like, am I gonna buy pizza or whatever, or buy a sandwich, or am I gonna buy records? And I would buy records. And I bought the Positivity 12-inch. And I remember I live in Queens. I grew up in Queens, so the store was on 42nd Street, Manhattan. Took the train, and right when you get to like Queens Plaza, the train got stuck. So it was like stuck in the train for like an hour or so, hour and a half. I had to walk home. I was like all for a fucking Gangstar 12-inch, but you know. Well, when I used to get writing paychecks, it wasn't never what I thought it would be like. I remember I reviewed Bahamadia album and AZ's album for like Paper magazine, and that was like one of the first mainstream things that I wrote for, like a non-hip-hop urban book. So I was like, yeah, the paycheck's gonna be crazy. I got the check, it was like $10, like it was like something like $9.99. So sometimes I would actually not even cash the checks, I would just like tape them up for inspiration. But I probably didn't make real money until I first job I took. Well, I was doing independent magazines with my partner Sasha Jenkins, and we did a magazine, a newspaper called Beatdown, and then we left that situation and started Ego Trip. So when we started doing Ego Trip, we put everything that we could make on the side into what we were doing, and then it got to the point where we needed like some real money or something. I was like, I had an opportunity to get a job. I was like, I'm gonna get a job. And CMJ was this trade magazine. They do a conference and they do performances still now, but basically it's a trade magazine that covers the music industry, and it was more popular like in the era of like the 90s and stuff in terms of hip hop. And I got a job there making $18,500 a year, $18,500 a year, $18,500 a year, and I thought I made it. Like I got some money coming in. This is great. What that job did for me was I had my own section. It was called the beatbox section. Basically, it was the hip hop section. So I was in charge of it. I basically reviewed the week in hip hop, like whatever the big record was. I picked one record to highlight, and then I highlighted and reviewed other little records, and then I kind of put together also their chart system, where back then you would call retailers and be like, okay, what albums are moving, what singles are moving, and I would do all sort of math and look at the radio DJs and what they're playing and tabulate all this information to help them build the charts. But it was cool. What I learned from that job was about deadlines, because when you're a freelancer, you always wait to the last minute, procrastinate to write. You know, hardest thing about writing is really sitting down and focus and writing and doing it. Because you get easily distracted from other things and not have your confidence up. But when you have a weekly deadline where you have to do the column and the shit prints on Friday, you know, you got to eventually do it. So that got me more like focused of like more so what I wanted to be. And ultimately I always wanted to be an editor more. I didn't want, what I liked about that was I had the final decision a lot about what was on the page. You know, I never really got caught up in wanting to be a great writer that just wrote for all these magazines, and I give my copy to editors and I have to go through that back and forth and get their approval and get the publisher's approval and get it printed. I wanted to be part of the decision making. So, you know, but that was when I first started getting real money, like just getting a steady paycheck every Friday, but even though it was only $18,500 a year. And then out of that job led to me getting a job at the Source, and then of course that was a little better money.
Just a little bit. Nah, it was significant.
Oh, I'm the worst book reader. My wife will tell you. What I do with books is I have no attention span. This is why I wrote, what's funny, I wrote this book, a rap list book, me and my 4 friends. It's funny, it's right here. No, but this book is for like me, where it's like you can just pop in anywhere and see information. When I read a book, like I'm really into biographies, especially when I was a kid. I would just grab every sports biography, any music biography, Walter Payton, you know, Jimi Hendrix, whatever, and like I'll skim through real fast. Like I have no patience. Like I want to get all the information as quick as I can. So I'm a real fast skimmer. I'm not like really roped up in like reading really slow and digesting everything. I want to get to the good parts. Like I'm like where the internet is. I'm real pull quote savvy and like real patient about, like lacking patience in terms of that. So I mean, I can come up with a very arrogant title, but the problem I have is you know, it's figuring out how to do it. I mean, people have approached me about it, you know, whether I'm writing a memoir or whether I write my take on hip hop history. Like, I just haven't figured out how to do it in an innovative way or a way that inspires me. You know, I think there are people that care about my story. You know, social media has raised my profile and now people know exactly who I am more. But I gotta find a way to do it that's innovative, that's really gonna connect to people. And my story within a bigger story, like a bigger context. Because my story is hip hop story in a lot of ways. Being the age that I am, you know, born in '71, and hip hop developed shortly after in the Bronx. So I had to find a way to parallel it that's not corny, that isn't too old school, that still connects to the now. So, you know, it's definitely something I want to do eventually. And one thing I've noticed too, like I have to like start doing it because I forget a lot of shit. Like I'm getting to a point now where I don't remember as much. Like I always rely on my man Noah, who runs Complex. Like he remembers a lot of the details of the shit that we went through, at least my era of Ego Trip in the 90s and that kind of era. But I start to forget things. So I gotta start remembering and writing it down so I don't fully forget all the wonderful things of the past. Get too locked up in the now. Kids, I would watch Tom and Jerry and all that type of shit. Magilla Gorilla. That's funny. Is he funny looking and shit? This is funny. Wow, that's hot.
Have you seen Elliott?
That's dope. Elliott Moose. No, but I got touched when I was a kid because when I was like 11 or 12, E.T. came out. E.T. was huge. This is like 82. So there's a scene in E.T. where the little boy's name is Elliott. And when he starts first communicating, they have that little thing where they put the fingers to each other and they go, ouch. Ouch. And Jay Electronica always teases me about that shit too, because he's like obsessed with E.T. movie.
What's happening with Jay Electronica, man?
Nothing's happening with Jay. Maybe he'll see this and get mad, but I don't think he's ever gonna put out anything. But I love him. He's very talented. He's exceptional. But you know, you have to have the desire to really share your gift, and I think there's something holding him back from doing that. Jay-Z, come on, Hova. Yeah, I think he proves it every day. You know, I think Drake's the best right now, and I think Jay's the greatest, and I think he continues to prove that. I think he continues to achieve, and you know, the fact that he could, you know, I saw him come out with J. Cole the other day and he does PSA, and that's still like what, 11 years old now, and that shit still rings off. And he could do Fuck With Me, You Know I Got It, and the shit still rings off. Like, I'm amazed that he can make the club banger at fucking 44 years old on his like 85th album or something, you know. He's my man, so we can joke. Nah, I mean, I think that we see parallels. Like, we're both older, and we try to prove that we're the best at what we do. And, you know, I think he's proven it. You know, I do give Drake the advantage right now. I feel like Drake's in a certain zone. I think Kendrick's a fucking monster. But I think Jay proving that he could transcend and reinvent himself in so many ways, you know, proves his longevity. We've never seen that in terms of how you document greatness in the culture. And that's all due respect to Biggie, Pac, and all the pioneers that came before it. But, you know, I think what Jay is doing and continues to do is unheard of. And I think if you're not saying he's the greatest, you're just in fucking denial. You're just saying who your favorite is. And Jay can't be your favorite if he's this big. I get it, to some people. But at the end of the day, he's my favorite, and he's the greatest of all time. Everything. I mean, it's just we move towards from media to social media because it's so instant. You know, hip hop, we're always on the edge. We're always cutting through. We want everything first. And Twitter and these things that we've taken that had nothing to do with us, we've made that our medium for that. You know, it's really just about the sharing of information, people having the voice to be part of a community and have an important opinion magnified by other followers, leading into a whole other audience knowing who we are, you know. So I think it's changed tremendously, and that we're the insiders more too. That's the thing too. Like, but I think we get too caught up in that. We think the whole world views us the way we do, and it's like, nah. It's like at the end of the day, you know, you guys may think Lil Wayne's over in your mind of the cool elite, but Lil Wayne still has many fans out there. Kendrick Lamar is a big superstar, but he's still not on the level yet where he could go places and get mobbed in, like, let's say, you know, middle America per se. So I think we get a little too caught up in our little world because we have a small world with very loud voices. But at the end of the day, we do a lot in dictating the way a lot of things go in culture, influencing how they go in culture. At the end of the day, though, there's also the culture outside of it, and fans and communities that are building things. And that's kind of what always happens, is that regions build things, and then things get to the point where they grow, and then they break national, and then they affect all regions and all worlds. So, you know, in terms of media, I've had to adapt where it's like, you know, the print's obviously going through its struggles. People want things online. People want information fast. They want opinion. They want humor. You know, everything that happens in the moment turns into a meme, turns into a conversation. And, you know, you just had to. I had to adapt to that. And thankfully, I was on the front end of that transition. And I've taken to it. I mean, I never get mad about the way things go. I have to accept that change comes, and there's good with it and there's bad with it, and I'm gonna adapt. You know, by making many others believers. And, you know, I don't mind your late YN. We've been up on that. You know, Young Thug now, right? Young Thug's made a record called Danny Glover, which now is a big record. I go to clubs. It's the record that's starting to break national. It's from Atlanta. You know, a lot of Atlanta MCs I was saying today, you know, they make really infectious melodies and hooks, you know, whether it's Future, Rich Homie Quan, you know, K Camp, and all those guys. Like, all these new artists keep coming with these records, Migos. So now Young Thug's, you know, the spotlight's on him. And, you know, now because of Drake or a Kanye co-signs it, or you see them at the club, you know, or you see Jay-Z with OG Bobby Johnson doing something, then it's like it's national. And it's the same thing with me. That's really my position. My position is more of a mainstream position. That, okay, this is what everybody's talking about. This is what's bubbling. Let me listen to it. You know, do I like it initially? Okay, if I don't like it, let me listen again and try to figure out what are the kids, what are the people connecting to? Like, why do they like this? Why is this working? Why is this resonating? And I try to understand it. I don't take this attitude that it's not worthy or it has to be like the 90s or the shit in the 80s that I grew up on, and, you know, I don't judge it that way. So I always say that I'm not the person that first put you on to everything. My thing is, like, you should do that, and you should be on all these underground sites, and I should be seeing your name a little bit. But everybody knows when these artists have their breakthrough song, you know, whether it's, you know, Spend It with 2 Chainz, or Best I Ever Had with Drake, or Hands on the Wheel with Schoolboy Q. You know, so when you have that record, then you can come see Elliott, and then we'll take it and we'll make it bigger. And, like, that's what it ends up being. And that's my role in the game. Because in the 90s, I was underground. I was Ego Trip, I was that. And our stars, our underground guys, became superstars. Nas, Wu-Tang, you know, they blew up and became that. The Fugees, they came up and they elevated. It started underground. It always starts underground. But at 43 years old, no. I'm not the one that first puts you up on anything. I'm the one to understand it and be open-minded about it. And then once I connect to it, I am going to impact it in a bigger way. And it's going to become bigger because of my connection to it. There's a lot. I've never interviewed Eminem. Well, I interviewed Eminem with Royce for Bad Meets Evil over the phone, but I've never interviewed Eminem in person. I've never interviewed Kanye. I mean, there's a lot. It would be Nicki Minaj. I've never even met Nicki Minaj. I don't think I've ever met her. So there's some heavyweights that you would think be surprised. I never met Dr. Dre. It's funny because we're doing this thing with Beats Music, where Rap Radar is one of the curators, and I'm very excited to be part of it, and I'm excited about their launch. But I've never met Dr. Dre. I mean, that would be an honor. I mean, I'm still a hip hop fan. Like to meet Dr. Dre would be special. You know what I mean? I have to get that Dr. Dre photo like he does with everybody and shit, with the thermal in the studio or something. So no, there's a lot. You'd be surprised that there's a lot I haven't really crossed paths with. Or, someone like Nas I haven't interviewed in like years, like, 10 years, 15, something like that. So it's either that, like someone I have never really sat with, or I haven't sat with recently, Where a lot of the newest people I've sat with several times over a small course. Like I interviewed J. Cole several times for Respect, and I've interviewed him, for Crown, and Drake I've interviewed a few times now. So, there's definitely a lot. There's definitely a lot to still look forward to, like what my interaction would be with this person. Would Kanye flip out on me? Would he tell me, I don't got the answers? We would see. I always say DJ Clue, but that was a long time ago in fairness to DJ Clue. It was some Rockefeller thing where I had to interview everybody. So it's like, by that nature, it's hectic anyhow. But like, Clue wasn't a great interview. I don't know. I think there's awkward moments with interviews. I haven't had a full awkward interview. I think thankfully now it's like people are like, well, your interviews are so great. And I was like, okay, well, why are my interviews so good? Why am I on this streak where people feel like my interviews are good? And I think the real difference is that, well, there's many differences, but I think the main difference that's not about like necessarily my skill is, who I am in this business and what I've done, and that to a certain level I built a level of respect. Being an OG in this and being that way. So now if I sit with an artist, they know this guy's decorated. This guy's done his work. He's been around. And if I show I'm still knowledgeable of what they're doing and respectful to their art, I'm going to get good results. So there's less awkward moments. I think there's more awkward moments, when you're first starting, you're building your rep up, because the artist is sitting with you and it's like, who are you, dog? Like, where are you from, homie? Like, like they may not know your site or know where you write for, or may not see you at parties. So who are you? It's like, so there's always that awkwardness in the beginning, but thankfully now, there's less awkward moments, but I'm also in a position where I can kind of decide who I'm gonna sit with and who I'm not gonna sit with. So, I definitely had my share of awkward moments. I remember I interviewed MOP back in the day, and I said something that offended Billy Danz, and he stood up and he was raised up on me a little, and I was like, first of all, I don't want it with you, Billy Danz, and second of all, I wasn't trying to offend you, but I was a rookie and I don't know what I said. But we were able to like squash it and get back to the interview and smooth it out. But you have those moments more so when you're a young journalist. So, but all I would advise is that you have to just listen well. If you listen well, if you come in, well, first do your research. You do your research, you come in knowledgeable. You're not gonna ask the same questions like you haven't asked the same questions, and you're aware of the person. You've done your homework, and then when you're talking to them, don't cut them off and listen. You'll have less awkward moments. Yeah. But awkward moments can be good for the conversation. You just have to know how to get out of the awkward moments. Sometimes awkward moments add a human element to it. So you just have to play every disadvantage to your advantage. Let's talk about it. Chubb Rock said, fuck the Grammys. I mean, just to bring the reality element of the Grammys. At the end of the day, the people that can vote for Grammys are people that are of the industry, the music industry, which is a bigger industry than just hip hop. Hip hop, we're still the babies. We've been around, 40 years, right? So this is a whole machine that of people of the industry, composers and people that have decorated credits. You have to have credits to be part of this community. Like I engineered these 4 albums, so I have an application to be part of this committee, and I pay my fees, and I vote for these things every year. So whatever's young and rebellious has always been looked against. Jimi Hendrix or James Brown, or all these people that are great artists that never got a Grammy, because it's more mainstream overall, more commercial, more safe usually in the picks that are made, and it may not be from an informed audience. With hip hop, it's very frustrating because we feel like we've never been treated with respect. They don't air a lot of our programs or our awards. They may not pick one of the 4 awards and air that, which they did with Jay-Z in this case. But the one that we want aired, like Best Rap Album, they didn't air that, so it doesn't necessarily connect to what we want as a culture. So we've always had a love-hate relationship with it. We want that validation. It means something to win that Grammy. Drake finally won his last year. But we always have this adversarial position, and I think that we're not part of the process. And even me, like I've been approached, but back in the day, in terms of a journalist, I'm not a musician, so I'm not credited that way. But as a journalist, you could be eligible if you have a certain amount of credits on albums, like and what we used to do as writers, we'd have liner notes. Like I wrote the liner notes to Jay-Z's greatest hits for Def Jam. So that's a credit. I may have a couple of others, but I don't even know if I have enough yet to qualify me voting for the Grammys. And I remember there was an outreach thing where one of the committee people was reaching out to like Just Blaze and Riggs Morales, who's an A&R, and we had a couple meetings about getting hip hop more involved and getting people like wanting to be part of it. But to be frank, I didn't really like the woman's energy in the meeting. And it didn't really go too well, according to me, to want me to be part of the process. But I know back then they were very concerned about, I don't know if they had messed up not acknowledging Guru's passing. It was somebody big that they messed up and they didn't acknowledge their passing. And you know, they have that part where they do the RIP segment. So if you notice, even this year they did an RIP for Lord Infamous, like from 3 6 Mafia. So it shows that they're making more of an effort, at least in that way, because they don't want to be disrespectful to our culture, you know what I mean? So I know that they've done a good job to make sure that people that pass away are acknowledged, but you know, a lot of us aren't part of the process. So of course we're going to complain about the end result. And it's like, but there was no movement before, you know, to like galvanize people of color, what it really takes for us. Like, can I vote? Can Ebro vote? Can these kind of people, can we vote? And how do we go about it? And how do we get more of a say in what is decided? Like, our voice isn't being heard. It isn't. It's validation from others and others in this business that may not love our culture the same way. So obviously the narrative is set up for Macklemore, that if Macklemore wins, obviously people who we all feel mostly as a culture that Kendrick made a better album, that, you know, we want Kendrick to get that specific award, and if he doesn't, it's a travesty. So that narrative was already being played out before it happened, you know, through social media. Like, what happens when Macklemore wins? Oh my God, it's bad for the culture. Ah, big bad Macklemore. And this guy's painfully going out of his way to try to be like, you know, he's not doing anything wrong. He made big records. He's pure in what his voice is. He understands being white gives him certain advantages, just like Eminem's always articulated. You know, you see him and Kendrick have a good rapport, and then he wins and everybody gets mad again. But you know, obviously you have to understand that he won because he has the bigger commercial records. So that swayed people who were available to vote. They're not probably looking at the album as a full body of work. They're looking at it like, well, that artist has all these songs that I know. So of course his album is probably the best album. He has Thrift Shop, he has Can't Nobody Hold Us, and Same Love. He has like 3 mega records, like 3 big records. I think everybody would say in that category, Macklemore has the bigger singular records, but we think Kendrick is a greater body of work. So that requires an insider to know that. So I think that's what it ends up being, you know, that argument. But at the end of the day, if we really want change, we're gonna have to be part of the process to sway it more in our favor, that people that are informed of our culture are the ones helping to make that decision. But right now we're powerless and we just want to complain about the results.
Exactly.
Oh my God, chicken, some kind of fried chicken, french fries, cornbread, but I don't think that way, man. I'm living forever, man. Fuck that. I think when you think about death and all that shit, it fucks you up, man. I'm blessed to be here. Every day is a blessing. I don't think about that shit. But if you ask me what my favorite meal is, I would if I had to pleasure myself some type of special meal, I would think fried chicken, french fries, cornbread, a Coke, some shit, some ice cream at the end, you know what I mean? Chocolate, vanilla mixture of some sort. You know, gotta get some good wine. You got a little wine, you know, right in the office, man. Gotta get that good red, you know what I mean? Champagne, if the stakes is high, it'll be champagne though. A little ace, you know what I mean? A little ace. My keys are here because I always have this fear of locking myself out. So I got my keys and I keep my money. But I used to take my money out and put it on my desk. Like I'm known to keep like money all over my desk. But my knot is really pitiful right now. I only got like 40 bucks on me right now. I usually have a big knot of cash. I'm trying to get more responsible with my money. And then I have like a fake wallet kind of thing with debit cards and ID and some people's business cards that I may keep or throw out. Stuff like that. Oh, and then, you know, I have the BlackBerry, the iPhone. If I have to pull the backup charger out, I got that. I gotta stay digital, baby. I gotta be online, man. People think I'm always on Twitter, I'm always on Instagram, man. I gotta live up to that myth. I gotta be always available online. Well, first I just want to thank, not a message to them, more so I want to thank them. I want to thank them for their belief in me. I want to thank them for their love of the culture. I want to thank them for teaching me, because I have a lot to teach them, but they teach me, and I appreciate that exchange. I like when they disagree with me, if they can back it up with something constructive. You know, and I try to stay young at heart. You know, I don't want to be young. I appreciate being grown in my perspective, but I realize that a lot of my culture is fueled by the youth, by you guys. And you know, I hope that you continue to like educate yourselves. You have all access to all this information to go back and look at things. Yeah, you're gonna find a Jay-Z Nas battle where I was at XXL and I had cornrows and all that shit, but there's bigger substances and things outside of that. And you know, I'm gonna continue to earn your respect, and you know, hopefully you respect me and we have that exchange, and the culture continues to grow with your support. Like I said, that's what I would urge the most, of just real, you know, consumership, that people really put their money where their mouth is and support the favorites. Go to the concerts, buy the albums, buy the t-shirts, you know, support your favorites. Really ride for your favorites and ride with them until they get to where you like them to be, you know, and just, you know, stay positive.